I so I've been really I have I have I have I have I have I'm I'm having I said I said I started none of the I said oh okay I started getting my anxiety, depression really bad. But today's been worse. I have this I have this oh god, that oh, it hurts so bad. Um, it took like it took like a it took like a everything out of me yesterday. Um, and then today I'm like didn't even have like the strength that I lost even yesterday. So then like I traded I tried to like order something to eat and then everything went really wrong. And then and then none of it was my fault. Like none of this had to happen. And there's that's the thing. There's nothing I can do to stop this. Things that keep getting worse. I don't have the strength for today. I didn't have it for yesterday. I'm not going to have it for tomorrow. And I have no control over what happens. It's just like it's just I tried to I tried to rest where I could today, but I couldn't because it just another thing and ah, ah. I just I tried to get up out of bed to do do my do my makeup and try, but I'm just not do not not doing great lately, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's not this was things just keep happening, and I have no control. Just okay, I see people already left, so all I can say, ask is please, if you've left, can you please stay gone, please, and don't come back? I only want people here that care about me because I'm like feeling really, really vulnerable. So please, just please don't come back if you've left, please. Okay, okay. Oh my God, my neck. Gonna have a migraine. Okay, well, I ah, I did. Oh, my Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh, oh. Ah, ah. Oh my god, I didn't even take my bra off. Oh, yeah, Oh no. Ah. 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 So we're on chapter 22. Um, Actually, I'll tell you, we're on page 240, and there's 324 pages. Um, in the story, of the book. Um, so yes, we're most of the way. Okay, chapter 22. Macy and Grant had taken to wearing their bicycle helmets to breakfast all day, really, except sometimes while swimming, as they worried about drowning. Despite Grant's injury, they acquiesced at night and slept without them because wearing a helmet to bed was impractical. But come daylight, the helmets were strapped tightly under their little chins like they were inspectors on a construction site, there to assess the structural viability of his house. All they were missing were coffee thermoses and a tube of blueprints. The previous day, Patrick had filmed a video of them clanking their helmets together like battering rams, a test of sorts of their own emergency system. He'd even handed his phone to Macy afterward and left the room. Tacit permission to post the video to YouTube. There were now several such videos on Patrick's channel. The first two a video of the kids running an obstacle course he made around the pool that mimicked the one television show they seemed familiar with, some sort of Ninja Warrior challenge, along with his ongoing critical commentary, one where Patrick had hooked bungee cords around their arms and pretended to control them like marionettes, and one in the hospital they filmed in the style of a talk show, except they each held their tongues down with depressors. Patrick got a perverse kick out of the online response, although he didn't altogether understand it. Likes and subscribers and comments came rolling in, first on YouTube and then on his old photos on Instagram. It was like people were remembering he was alive, discovering him all over again, blood flowing in the circuitry connecting him to the outside world. But as the kids emerged from their rooms wearing their helmets for the fifth morning in a row, all Patrick could manage was why. Aftershocks, Maisie said, with a dismissive nonchalance. Things could hit us in the head. The sky is not falling, Henny. Grant produced a granola bar he was hoping to eat. My helmet's on too tight for me to chew. Marlene began sniffing around his shoes, hoping he'd drop a bite of his snack. Well, the good news is you look ridiculous. Patrick ushered Grant over and loosened his strap so the kid could eat his breakfast. Finish up. We might as well go for a bike ride so you blend in. Early morning bike rides had become a staple, a way for them to burn off some of their energy before they were driven inside from the heat. This morning, however, they got a later start. Riding in the mid-morning sun was like pedaling into a wet cement wall that was slowly hardening around you. 5 blocks from home, they dismounted their bikes to walk. Patrick's heart was racing and his palms were sweating. He assumed incorrectly from exertion. It wasn't until after they'd walked a block and his elevated heart rate refused to recede that he realized how apprehensive he was. It was long past time to tell the kids about Joe, and now he really didn't know how to begin. A small lizard scurried across the sidewalk, which was hot like a girdle until it disappeared in some tall desert grass growing on a vacant lot. Patrick didn't call attention to it for fear of losing his focus. It didn't matter. He chickened out anyway. By afternoon, every inch of his swimming pool was covered in enormous pool floats. The unicorn, the flamingo, the donut, the pizza slice. They'd all been drafted into service. Even the lobster that Sarah had given him to remind him of his New England roots. Patrick could hardly see signs of water peeking through the flotilla. Grant rode a silver-winged stallion filled with glitter through this inflatable forest. Macy kneeled on a pineapple, clutching its yellow sides, both of them in their bicycle helmets still. What on earth? Patrick asked as he emerged from the house to join them. God, look, I'm riding a Pegasus. Patrick focused his attention on Grant, who was pleased as punch, perched safely above the water. His forehead was covered with a flesh-colored bandage that shined in the sun. Patrick set a tray of smoothies he'd made on the patio table. You're riding a Terrapus. Pegasus was white. You know what? But terrific. Don't get your bandage wet. I'm floating on a pineapple. I can see that. Patrick cupped his hands above his eyes to block out the sun. Where's my pool? He took 2 steps forward and tripped over the cord to the pump that they undoubtedly used to inflate his stash. Gup, get your swimsuit. Already wearing it, bud. As Patrick entered the pool, John popped his head over the wall, holding a gardening trowel. Howdy, neighbors, John waved. Just doing some planting. When I heard the kids playing, thought I'd check on them. It takes a gay village. How's your house, John? Any damage from the quake? Patrick could all but see Jed's collection of tumescent sculptures shattered in ruins on the floor. It was a mystery how they ever stood upright to begin with. A few broken glasses in the kitchen. We have a cabinet door that likes to swing open by itself. Some knickknacks, no heirlooms. A mirror fell off the wall and shattered. That'll be 7 years of bad luck. Some knickknacks? Sorry to hear that. Don't be, they're just things. We're fine. Dog's fine. Cleaned up in a jiff. Grant, you're riding a Pegasus. That's right, Grant exclaimed. Finally, someone who got it. Pegasus is the symbol of wisdom and fame, just like your uncle, wise and famous. He's not that famous, Maisie scoffed. Pegasus was also a fountain of inspiration for poets, John added, leaning further over the wall. Some people called him the horse of Muses. Patrick took full opportunity of John's distraction to rub more sunscreen on Grant. I don't know, like, I feel like there are some people that are really famous. Like Taylor Swift. But I think most people, like, on just a show, they could go out and nobody, I don't think, would really, no, I shouldn't say nobody, but hardly anyone would really recognize them. Especially in most places, but, like, back when there was less, like, networks and there was not so much, like, internet programming, like, if you look at the millions of people that would watch, like, I think there's reports of, like, half of America or something watching, like, a new episode of I Love Lucy. Or, like, there were just, so if you were, like, Lucille Baldwin, you would go out, you would be recognized. But nowadays, so many people, like, they act like they would be recognized. I really don't think so. Like that, who was that person? She sang a song that came out like 2 years ago, like that Pink Pony Club song that I liked it when it came out like 3 years ago. But she's all like, I can't go anywhere. People will recognize me. And like on page, it's like, are you sure? Like maybe if you're like in your like full drag outfit, people are like, oh, look, a clown. But I really doubt people would recognize Patrick like that much. I mean, maybe if you're. I'm trying to think of any, like, I guess Taylor Swift. Who would people like? I guess, I don't know, like Donald Trump. Like, who does like everybody kind of know at the moment in America? I could be wrong, but there's probably some like network hosts that I have no idea who they are, but most people would know. Judge Judy, because of makeup. Where was it? Patrick took full opportunity of John's distraction to rub more sunscreen on Grant. You know, we wrote a limerick about you when you first bought the house, John offered. Oh, really? There once was a man named Patrick who moved in just over the brick. We looked over the wall. He was standing quite tall, with quite an impressive. Patrick covered Grant's ears. Okay. John laughed. I was going to say picnic. Sure you were. A friend gave us one of those floats for our pool, too. Pegasus was the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea. According to legend, wherever Pegasus would stride his hoof on the ground, a spring would appear from the earth. John had Maisie's and Grant's rapt attention. Palm Springs is known for its springs, as well as its many swimming pools, so a Pegasus seemed like a symbolic gift, at least according to my friend. Wow, cool. Grant turned and splashed and looked at his uncle through his green lizard goggles. Patrick massaged the last of the lotion into Grant's skin and gave him a little push. Did you hear me before? Don't get your bandage wet. John looked on, impressed. You know, Patrick, you've become quite adept at that. Patrick touched his forehead between his eyebrows gently, as if after all these years it might hurt. Sadly, as much as I'd like it to be otherwise, I'm just not a boy wizard. When was this? Maisie asked. Patrick had to do some quick math in his head. Before you were born. He reached out and intertwined his fingers with hers, further anchoring them together. So I've been at this grief thing a while. Maisie fiddled with her helmet, sweeping her hair back underneath so it wouldn't stick to her brow. When does it get easy? He thought about lying, but what was the point? Greg didn't send his children to Palm Springs to be lied to, and even if he had, they deserved better. Instead, he squeezed her hand and said, Any day now. And then he smiled to show them that grief wasn't the end of the world. Macy let one leg fall into the pool, defeated. But it does get easier. I want you to remember that, because you're going to go home in a few weeks, back to your house and your belongings and normal things. Your toys, for instance, might seem drained of their pleasure, of their ability to bring you joy. Games you played with your mom, maybe. And that's okay. You're both so big now. He reached for Grant's hand, too. Maybe you've outgrown them. Maybe they will regain their powers over time. Either way, it's fine. Patrick sat up, careful to keep his balance. He leaned forward to unbuckle Grant's bicycle helmet, and then likewise loosen Macy's. Take these off. The sky is not going to fall. That's what I'm telling you. The pain you feel, the disaster you think is imminent, those feelings fade, and some days you even miss it. Some days you miss the pain because you're afraid that as the pain softens, so do memories of the one you lost. Patrick thought how best to explain this in a way they would understand. Do you guys have chalkboards at school? We have whiteboards, Maisie said. Patrick lifted the helmet off her head. But we have a chalkboard Ethel at home. Weasel? He means Esel. Oh, so then, it feels sometimes like Joe, whom I love very much, is being erased. He's just a smudge now on a chalkboard, smeared in an effort to get rid of him, to make way for something new. And I hate that. So there are times I wished it hurt more because it would mean the details of him would still be sharp. And then there are other days out here in the desert, especially if you go way out to Joshua Tree or beyond, when you can see the Milky Way, a whole smudge of stars across the sky, and you think there's still so much in that smudge, so many gleaming, beautiful things that you could never erase them all. Do you have a picture of him? Maisie asked after taking this new information in. Of Joe? Many. I put them away. I don't often look at them anymore. Patrick eased back onto his float. I have a letter. That he wrote you? That I wrote to him after he died. Why did you write to him after he died? The question hit Patrick hard. Was it merely an assignment from a therapist whose credentials he questioned at the time? It helped me, and I think it might help you. When we go inside, I think we should all write letters to your mom. They look confused. We can't send them, you understand, but really they're for ourselves. Years from now, we can read them. You'll see where you were, and you'll see how much you've grown, and that will make your mother happy, knowing eventually that you'll be okay." Patrick pushed Grant's drink back in his nephew's direction. "Finish your smoothies, kids." "Why?" Maisie asked. "Why?" Patrick reached for his own beverage. "Guncle rule number 13. Fun drinks make everything more interesting." They wrote their letters that afternoon. Cassie Everest's office. The voice was androgynous, bordering on bored, so much so Patrick almost forgot to speak. Cassie, had she finagled an assignment out of this promotion, or was she lowering her voice an octave to fake one? Either way, he was impressed. "May I tell her who's calling?" "Patrick." "Patrick, her client?" Patrick was immediately jealous. He liked to have people's undivided attention. "Does she have other accounts?" "Oh, Patrick!" There was a glimmer of light in the voice. This wasn't Cassie after all. She wouldn't take the charade this far. So who was this new being? "Please, let's not stand on ceremony. Call me Mr. O'Hara." There was an awkward pause as this new addition to the team tried to assess if he was joking. "One moment, Mr. O'Hara." Patrick emptied the dregs of the coffee pot into his mug, took a sip, and spat in the sink. Maisie insisted on making the coffee each morning, and while it was drinkable, freshly brewed, it did not stand up to the morning. He peered into the living room. It was empty. The kids were reading quietly in their rooms. It was a rare moment of privacy, and he was taking full advantage. "This is Cassie." Her voice rang through the phone, serious, assured. "Amy Adirondacks, is that really you? The one and only?" "Neil really did right by you." Patrick hoped to God this was true. "Office, assistant, company credit card, and I have you to thank. He really listens to you." "Everyone listens to me." The TV came on in the other room. Patrick screamed over the volume, "I said no television!" He could hear Cassie smile through the phone. "I think he's jealous of you, frankly." Neil, gossip was the way to Patrick's heart. He became an agent, but all things considered, he would have rather been famous himself. "You tell that prick the only way he's going to see his name in lights is if he changes his name to Exit." It was an old line, but Cassie was young and didn't know all the old lines, and he punctuated it with a new panache, hoping she would later repeat it in the office lunchroom, allowing Neil to overhear. Sure enough, she laughed. "What can I do for you, Patrick?" "All business, Cassie 2.0. My Golden Globe is dented." "It's dented? It has a dent in it." "A dent," Cassie repeated. The word was in danger of losing all meaning. "A dent, a dimple, a depression. It fell during the earthquake." "Oh, okay. We'll call over to the Hollywood Foreign Press and see about getting it replaced." Silence. "Are the kids all right? Do you mind me asking?" "They are, and I don't mind. Listen, I want you to look into something for me, without saying you're looking into it." "I'm not sure I understand, but okay." "Am I going to have to do all the work?" "I want you to gauge interest." "In?" Cassie asked. "Employment opportunities." Patrick swallowed hard, as if trying to force the words from escaping, but it was too late. "In New York." "Wow, New York." "All right, well, don't blab it all over town." Although, wasn't that exactly what he was asking her to do? "Any particular kind of employment? I'm not sure I qualify to work at the UN." "Television, movies, theater." Patrick remembered his protest the first time Cassie came to see him. In this very kitchen. He was an unbroken stallion then, a tame pony now. "Are you going to make me say it? I'm flexible." "Okay, so I'm going to look into work opportunities in New York without saying I'm looking into it." "Exactly. You're gauging interest." "Any suggestions on how I do that?" Patrick sighed. "I hear Patrick O'Hara is looking to return to work, and might make a run of it in New York, that sort of thing. Start with gossip. And if there is interest, Patrick was hopeful there would be, quietly make note and move on. I can't do more than make note. For Patrick, returning to work was not merely a financial necessity, it was to be the final step of his own recovery. He had to remember how to feel things, and if he had to accomplish that, in part, by becoming someone else, some new role, then so be it. It was probably safer that way. But that didn't erase his hesitancy entirely. Not yet, no. And why is that? Because I'm still gauging mine. Chapter 23. It took me so long. Last night I was looking and looking for that clip that he saw on YouTube in the book, and I only was able to, to find it because of the what they call it, the like white tuxedo or the white top. Maybe it was black trousers, but and then it was like a low cut. Because there was another one with like red, but that one was so hard to find. But apparently, if you want to watch that whole concert, it's on like a bunch of the free apps like Tubi, Freebie, like it might even be on like Peacock or something. Like it's out there if you want to watch the whole show. Because the first video I saw was of this this like sweet man, like this like kind of he reminded me of Patrick, like a flamboyant sort of gay guy. I wonder if he lives in Palm Springs. And he was talking about it, called Liza with a Z. It was why I clicked, because I thought maybe it was the video I was looking for. And anyway, it's going over like his favorite albums or something by video. So I might send you that one because it was cute. But he talked about the performance, because the CD was a CD recording of that concert that won like an Emmy and all this. 72, it had apparently not aired, and in 1999 it was released. Then like she still just owned the recording, because I don't know if it was seen maybe until 2006. Anyway, but it is out there and you can see it. But he had said that this was only a few years after she lost her mother, like Judy Garland. So anyway, it was reminding me of it because she had the loss and like went on to perform, and he had this loss and he's trying to go on and perform. I don't know. I'm just fascinated. Like, I don't know why gay people like Judy Garland and of course, and Liza Minnelli and all that, but who knows? Chapter 23. The fight had been brewing for days. It seemed the closer they were to Greg's release, the more they all succumbed to their frazzled ideas about what the future might hold. Maisie in particular was sullen, withdrawn, immune, suddenly, to her uncle's innumerable charms. On Tuesday she refused to do the dishes and told Patrick it was his job to do them as a grown-up. On Wednesday she said she didn't want to eat supper, even though Rosa had cooked all day. It wasn't the menu she objected to. Rather, she wanted to eat dinner like a normal family. Normal is a terrible thing to aspire to, Patrick had said. Aim higher. What do you even mean? Maisie was exasperated. Want more for yourself. Talk like a regular person, Patrick sighed. Normal families are boring. It was a slip on Patrick's part, a terrible thing to say to a girl who had lost her mother. Her moodiness had brought out his own. He opened his mouth to apologize, but Maisie scuttled his launch before it got off the ground. You're boring. You take that back. I will not. Oh. I'm a lot of things, many of them unflattering, but boring is not one of them. Grant put up a withering defense of his uncle before Patrick put his hand on his arm, letting the boy know he could fight his own battle. Maisie glared at her uncle before storming off and slamming the door to her room. Why is she so pissy? Grant shrugged. On Thursday, they went for brunch at Cheeky's. Maisie didn't say a word to their Lyft driver, a woman named Mona. who had her hair tied up like a scarf in a scarf like she'd answered their call from a salon halfway through her appointment. Maisie didn't even offer a response when Mona asked her a direct question about Maisie's level of excitement about going back to school. Something Patrick knew she was looking forward to, if only as a metric to measure a return to some sort of stability. Our driver asked you a question, Maisie. Maisie just stared out the window. Aren't you excited to see your friends? What about Amy Beckwith? Audra Brackets! She's excited, Patrick translated to Mona. I'm going to be in fourth grade, Grant offered cheerfully. Patrick nudged him in the shoulder, grateful for his willing cooperation. So grown up, Mona said, flashing them a smile in the rearview mirror. At the restaurant, the kids had their usual fresh corn pancakes with a side of hot tots, which is what Cheekies called their potatoes. Patrick ordered the paleo granola and a mimosa. The place was unusually hopping for the ungodly hour. It was one of the problems with Palm Springs. The blazing sun was a virus that turned everyone into morning people. Patrick thought he should break the mood with a joke. Gunkel Rule 11D5, Special Brunch Edition. Bottomless mimosas are not the same thing as pantsless mimosas. Very different, in fact. Learned that the hard way. You didn't wear pants? Grant asked. Grantelope, you have no idea how many restaurants I've been kicked out of for not wearing pants. Patrick bopped Grant on the head with a menu. Grant mumbled some loophole about his shorts not being pants when Maisie interjected. There are too many rules. The word rules dripped with so much disgust, Patrick was taken aback. I'm sorry, do you want to try that again and watch your tone? Patrick traced his fingers on the hair over his upper lip. He shaved that morning, displeased with the gray on his chin, but left behind a pleasantly dark mustache. I'm tired of living here. It's 1,000,000 degrees, and your rules aren't funny, and I want to go home. Talk about hot tots, Patrick said under his breath, perhaps to Grant, who had become somewhat a confidant over the last few days of his sister's souring mood. Grant, however, was trying to untangle silverware from his napkin and didn't pick up on the comment. What did you say? Maisie narrowed her eyes. Her anger was almost comical, but Patrick didn't laugh. It was coming from someplace very real. I said, talk about a hot tot. Satisfied? I'm not a tot. This was abundantly clear. It was like she'd morphed into a teenager overnight. Yes, I know. You're 16 and you don't need a governess. Grant gave his napkin a yank like a magician pulling a tablecloth. His silverware careened across the table, rescued from sailing off the edge at the last possible second by the jam caddy. Okay, can we all just take it down a notch? You're both at like an 8, and I need you at a 4. What do those numbers even mean? A 4 of what? Use the context, Maisie. I'm not that difficult to understand. Patrick placed his napkin in his lap before sliding Grant's fork back across the table in front of him. A waiter appeared over his shoulder with Patrick's mimosa balanced on a tray with a rich-looking Bloody Mary. I'm sorry, I hate to be a pest, Patrick started. Don't listen to him, Maisie interjected. He loves to be a pest. Patrick kicked Maisie under the table, but he also couldn't help but be impressed. If he sent these kids back to Connecticut with enough snappy comebacks to populate a screwball comedy, the summer would not be a waste. Ignore her. She went to bed a sweet girl and woke up a surly teenager. I've changed my mind. Could I actually have one of those? He pointed to the Bloody Mary on the waiter's tray. He back-pocketed his line about waving it over the glass and having it be too much tomato juice, as he actually liked tomato juice. No problem. In fact, you can have this one. And then, in a hushed, looks like you need it. The waiter placed the drink in front of Patrick and whisked the mimosa away. What is that? Grant asked. Patrick removed the olive and used the leafy celery stalk to muddle some horseradish at the bottom of his glass. It's a salad. Want one? Gross. That's not a salad. Sure it is. Celery, olives. The tomatoes are a little runny. And let's see you eat it with a fork. Macy crossed her arms defiantly while Grant helpfully offered his. Patrick took a long sip of his drink and inventoried each ingredient as it slid down his throat. Pepper, Tabasco, lemon juice, Worcestershire, easing into the burn. You think the summer has been a nonstop thrill ride for me? That there haven't been days I had to sit on my hands so I wouldn't grab your suitcases, stuff you in them, and put you on the next flight east? Well, guess again. Then send us to live with Grandma and Grandpa. I'll send you to your room without any supper. I'm serious. You don't want to live with Grandma and Grandpa. Why not? Because they think Fox News is news and raisins are food. Patrick looked down at Graham, who was rearranging the sugar packets. Do you want to live with Grandma and Grandpa? Do they have a pool? No, but they're talking about getting one of those tubs for old people with a door you can walk through so you don't slip and fall getting out. Are they putting it outside? No, in their bedroom, in their bathroom. Oh, Grant was more than ready to move on. Can I have a cinnamon roll? They don't have those here. You're thinking of coffee. A donut then? No. Can we see the big dinosaurs? We've seen them 3 times this summer. I want to know if they're okay. They're not okay. They're extinct. Patrick threw his arms up, exasperated. You guys exhaust me, you know that? Can I have this? Can we do that? It's not good for my skin. I see everyone saying, hey, Pale, where is he? Oh, there you are. Hi, Pale. Hey, everybody. Yes! Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot so far that it was Jerry's birthday. All right, let's put a katsu uh in the lineup at some point soon. Catwoman soon. And you know whose birthday was recently? It was Daryl's. And I forgot. His was on like Friday. He didn't want to like bother us all with what was going on with my sister, but so everybody wish Daryl a happy birthday as well. I think Daryl told me he was turning 25. Not sure I believe it. Not sure you believe what. That it's Jerry's birthday because he's been lying. No, it is. Patrick placed his napkin in his lap before sliding Grant's fork back across the table in front of him. A waiter appeared over his shoulder with Patrick's mimosa balanced on a tray with a rich-looking bloody. Wait, I already read that part. I'm on the next page. Sorry. Here we go. Macy picked up a promotional card for a new breakfast sandwich with a braised short rib, while Grant put the finishing touches on the sugars. Patrick picked at the mesquite salt on the rim of his glass, wishing already that the sun was down so he could take off one more day until Greg was free. And then Macy's reedy voice broke the silence. I hate you. That just makes me laugh. I hate you. Patrick froze. Macy's words were stark and unsettling, meek but with startling conviction. They sucked the air out of the restaurant. Patrick glanced around, wondering how others could breathe. He slid his feet back and forth under the table, trying desperately to get his footing. But the floors were a highly polished concrete, and his feet comically flailed beneath him in a Keaton-esque fashion. Maisie's outburst was the aftershock he'd been afraid of. He reached up and touched his head, seeing the sudden wisdom in wearing a bicycle helmet for protection. He silently counted to 10 to avoid saying something he would later regret. Now, more than ever, he had to be the adults. No one hates me, except the New York Times, but they hate everyone from LA. Back during the run of the show, they did 500 eviscerating words on him that to this day still stung. I hate you, Maisie repeated the charge. I'm not so fond of you right now, but if we're being honest, I want to go home. All right. Patrick pushed his drink away from him and started to rise. As much as he wanted that Bloody Mary, there was no way he was going to enjoy it under duress. To Connecticut. He sat back down. Just for that, we're going to sit here and take our time. No. And I'm going to tell them that it's your birthday, so they'll come bang on some pots and pans. You can't make me stay here. Oh, do you have any rideshare apps on your phone? Patrick waved his phone at her tauntingly. Maisie lunged for it, but he pulled back just in time. She folded her arms in a pout. I'll walk. You can't walk. You'll get heat stroke and collapse from thirst. Maisie picked up her glass of water and defiantly headed for the door. All right, that's it. No more Mr. Nice Guy. What? Patrick threw his napkin on the table in disgust. Sit down. Or what? The truth was, there weren't a lot of threats he could make and follow through on, but that didn't mean he was willing to be pushed around. You can't spell nemesis without me, sis. And you do not want to make me your enemy. He stood up, placed his hands on her shoulders, and guided her back to the table. Surprisingly, she didn't fight him. Let's all just take a breath and wait for our food. Do you know a flamingo's knees are actually its ankles? Is that true? Patrick turned to Grant. Yeah, he said with a surprising authority. Patrick thought for a moment. Did you know a duel between three people is called a truel? It was something he learned in a Shakespeare class in college, or thought he had. Memory was a tricky thing. He hoped it was true, as it was surprisingly relevant now. You kids have it made, you know that? I have all the spoils of success and no natural heirs. All you have to do is be a little bit nice to me, and I'll make sure you're set for life. That's all you have to do, and change my diapers when I'm old. Grant laughed. Gross. Patrick kissed Grant on the top of the head and squeezed him into his side like an emotional support animal. He wasn't going to tell either of them, but he had no plans to stick around that long. He never wanted to be the first to leave a party, but unlike his friend Emery, he didn't want to be the last to hang around either. He certainly wouldn't endure the indignity of diapers. Yeah, you're right. We'll hire someone to do that. The waiter arrived with precision timing. He placed the corn pancakes in front of the kids before handing Patrick his granola. Everyone happy? Happiness is overrated. Well, we're all just fine, though. Thank you. Cheers. He lifted his Bloody Mary in a celebratory gesture to thank the waiter again for giving it to him. Can I have syrup cup? Patrick pushed the syrup toward Grant. He poured the granola over his yogurt and topped it with fresh berries, remembering all the times he'd tortured his mother with smart-ass remarks. To this day, he wasn't clear why. He grew 4 inches overnight and his bones hurt. Testosterone coursed wildly through his body, wreaking havoc on his skin, which was maddeningly both oily and dry. The acne medication he begged to be on required regular blood tests at the doctor's office. He abhorred and made his lips chap. He loved a boy and didn't understand yet why, and the boy caught him staring and told the whole school, causing Patrick to feel more isolated than he already had, so desperately, totally alone. He told his mother she was a bad mother. He told her she had no light. When she asked him to clean his room one time, he muttered, menopause must be hell. Oh my God, what a meanie. He thought he had whispered under his breath, but it was loud enough for her to hear. He cursed her silently at the dinner table, angry that she could not understand things that he would never allow her to see. But the whole time, he had a mother to curse, to hate, to forgive. He had a mother to stand there and listen, to take these tirades and to forgive him right back. I'm sorry, Maisie. Patrick reached out and put his hand on hers, which was gripping her fork in a tight fist. For anything I said that upset you, I'm the grown up and I should know better. Maisie didn't say anything or even really look up, but he thought he saw her head bob, and you could feel the slightest bit of air escape from this overinflated balloon. Patrick continued, "Did you notice our waiter's name? Gail? It was on his name tag. Now that's something I like. Men who can pull off women's names. Give me a male name Hillary or a Bertie. Sandy even. Give me Evelyn Wool. I met Ashley once on a plane and I almost married him. It might have been a Leighton Gone with the Wind thing. Boys can have girls' names. Why not? Girls can have boys' names. Plenty of girls are named Alex or Frankie or Sam. A girl named Charlie." Patrick put his fingers to his lips and gestured a chef's kiss. "It's the Wild West we're living in." Terry, oh my god. Oh my god. See, I always just think because you're foreign, that where you're from, it must be more of a boy's name. And that's why, you know what I mean? I never like just assume your mom gave you a girl's name. Patrick discreetly glanced at Macy, careful not to make a production out of it. She wasn't amused, but she also didn't seem angry anymore, and she was eating. He had been worried a hunger strike might be coming next, so that in itself was a small triumph. "Is that why you like Emily?" "I don't like Emily." Patrick reached for his phone in his pocket. "Who's Emily?" "Emily from the party. You made us watch him on YouTube." "Emery!" Patrick was appalled. "Oh," Grant said. "I thought his name was Emily." Patrick checked his phone for the time, and there it was, right on his lock screen, like an emotional hate crime, an annual calendar reminder from another life. Everything was suddenly clear. Patrick dismissed the reminder before tucking his phone in his pocket, one thing at a time. For now, he wanted to put this tension behind them once and for all. "Maisie, you look like your mom this morning." She froze mid-bite and looked up from her plate. "You do, you really do. I think it's the way the sun hits you just right." Patrick smiled and brushed the hair from her face, the way he used to with Sarah, more and more every day. The table next to him, a couple in their 60s who reminded him of his parents, got up to leave. The woman, wearing those three-quarter length pants that flatter exactly no one, handed him a folded napkin with a smile. Her husband, silk golf shirt, palm frond pattern, waved politely. Grant waved back. Patrick held the napkin, unsure what to do with it. He was terrified it was another Stark notification, like the one on the phone, something that should be clear. If he weren't so distracted and self-absorbed, he held the napkin below the table, away from Grant, and slowly opened it. Inside was a note. "Every parent has these days. You're very good with them. Your breakfast is on us." "What does it say?" Maisie asked. She never missed a trick. Patrick folded the napkin and slipped it in his pocket. "You're very good with them." It was all he could do not to cry. He looked over his shoulder to thank the couple, but they were already passing the windows outside. He watched, hoping to catch their attention, until they were out of sight. Alas, they never turned back. "It says we should go see the dinosaurs, so eat up." Grant dropped his fork on his plate and threw his hands in the air in triumph. "Yeah, they may be extinct now, but you never know. Sometimes things come back to life." Chapter 24. Let's just say my knees are telling me I'm 95. You know what? We all have something, and there are people whose knees hurt very bad, and they're kids. You know what I mean? Like they may have had an accident or like something at birth. We should try to consider ourselves lucky when we can, when it, like, it could be worse. Like with my back, at first I was all upset to have this back fracture. Then you go to these places and you get the context of how, in the scale of like back um, breaking, it's not as bad as other people have it. So try to look at it that way. Animatronics. What? Don't be sorry. At least you don't have a lady's name like Terry. Actually, you know what? I bet there are some girls named Jerry. Sorry, Jerry. Are there any guys named Stella? 24. The rain started mid-afternoon in torrential sheets and caught Patrick and the kids off guard. 350 days of sun a year. Why bother to ever check the weather? Each drop landed with a deafening thwack against his flat roof. The symphony outside a perfect score to the mood within. Patrick glanced out the front window. The gravel in his yard was already disappearing under a thin lake. The ground underneath too dry, too hard to absorb such a downpour quickly. Earlier in the day he ordered a cake to be delivered. Now he wondered if it would show up at all. Grant twirled into the room, his own cyclone. Do you think I should write a letter to the Tooth Fairy? He had to yell to be heard above the rain. No, but I want to. Grant climbed on his uncle's leather chair to look out the window, too. What are you, pen pals? You don't need to write her. Why not? Grant implored. Because you don't have any loose teeth. Grant placed his hands on his hips defiantly. Yeah, but I'm gonna. I'm worried she might forget me. Patrick stifled a laugh. She won't. She will. Won't happen. How do you know? Patrick pried his eyes away from the front walk to focus squarely on Grant. You're unforgettable, that's why. Grant beamed, then stuffed his fingers in his ears. The rain is loud. Patrick agreed that it was, then added, Feet off my chair, even though Grant couldn't hear. The cake finally arrived when Macy was in her room with the door closed and Grant was in the backyard. Marlene erupted like Vesuvius at the knock on the door, her hot, angry barking blanketing the entire house with panic. Fila, we got a match over here for you. Patrick picked up her in order to answer the door. She wriggled the entire time to get free. Where was the silent film star he brought home from the kennel? Everyone, it seemed, was changing. Cake for Jack Curtis. Whoa, Patrick exclaimed. Behind the delivery man arched an enormous rainbow in the sky. Neat, huh? Patrick tipped the guy a 20 and balanced the pink pastry box in one hand. He marveled at the rainbow as the delivery guy returned to his van. Sarah, is that you? He thought, but felt instantly foolish. What was a rainbow after all? Refracted light. Gay people. Christians always fighting over the symbolism when rainbows rightfully belong to the leprechauns. He kicked the door closed and set Marlene on the ground, careful to balance the cake. The truce he'd established with Maisie, since brunch was fragile, a ruined surprise could reignite their war. As promised, Patrick had taken them to the Cabazon Dinosaurs roadside attraction. At the base of the life-size Brontosaurus, Maisie nestled into her uncle. It might have been to shield herself from the wind that came whipping through the exhibit, kicking up sand from the parking lot. It might have been to commiserate over having to go to the dinosaurs for Grant yet again. Patrick had put his arm around her anyhow. He was willing to take what he could get, and she didn't openly rebel. They even dug for dinosaur eggs in the sandpit together, crouching low to avoid the wind. Can we do a video? Grant asked. It was the one thing that never failed to bring them together. Sure. We'll film one in the slow motion. You both run from the T-Rex and look back over your shoulder like it's chasing you. Patrick fished his camera out of his pocket and screamed. Make sure you scream big. I don't feel like screaming, Maisie protested. You're being chased by a dinosaur. Screaming is the most important part. And then, without really thinking, Patrick screamed long, hoarse yawk to prove his point. A weekday morning, the crowds were thin, but his carrying on still turned a few heads. He scanned the startled gawkers and then pointed up to the T-Rex's open mouth, towering above them as explanation. And then the kids screamed too, and Patrick screamed again, and together they released these primal, mournful wails that were swallowed by the howling wind. What's in the box? Grant asked, appearing through the sliding glass door. It seemed aggravatingly nosy at first, intrusive. The way he howled for years after Joe died, the way the way he would materialize at the sound of the doorbell, until Patrick remembered how for years after Joe died, the way his heart would lift whenever someone opened a door. He knew intellectually Joe wouldn't walk through, but in those fractions of seconds he remembered what hope felt like. Patrick gently nudged Marlene out of the way with his foot to clear a path to the kitchen. A surprise. Want to help me? I need to find matches. Grant vibrated enthusiastically. He was conspiratorial by nature, and if lighting something on fire was a part of this, he was 100% on board. Together, they tapped on Maisie's bedroom door. Patrick held the cake with 3 lit candles, their gentle flames dancing in the current from the air conditioning vents. It had lavender icing and elaborate sugar, flowers that crawled up the sides of the cake like vines. The design wasn't to Patrick's taste, but that was hardly the point. This wasn't for him. Grant held his ear to the door and snickered. Go away. Patrick knocked again. I'm asleep. Then how are you talking? Grant implored. He apparently found this hysterical, but worked hard to stifle his giggles. After a pause, Maisie replied, I'm reading. Patrick opened the door slowly, and when he saw Maisie's eyes connect with the cake, he pushed in his way in. The room was darkening, drained of its color the way things can look in the last of a gloomy day's light. The candles introduced a sunny yellowish hue. Maisie was lying on the floor with a book, and betraying her inner determination, she looked up at her uncle with wonder. What's that for? You tell me. Maisie closed her book and sat up. She clasped her hands together and placed them under her chin. It's Mom's birthday today. Yes, it is. Sarah's birthday. Send flowers. The message that appeared on his lock screen that morning. She's not here, though, to celebrate. Her voice dripped with defeat. Patrick knelt in front of his niece and ushered Grant around. He held the cake between them. Maisie's eyes grew wet, and a single candle flame danced in each of her dark pupils. For a flickering moment, he saw Sarah and Maisie plain as day, and then the light shifted, and he saw himself, even though he knew it wasn't him, but rather his brother Greg. Sure she is, don't you think? And either way, we're here to celebrate for her, so it's up to us to make her a wish. What kind of wish? Grant asked, joining them on his knees. Whatever kind you want. Let's all make one. Maisie considered the cake. Her demeanor softened as she took in each perfect detail. The color, the flowers, the buttercream swirls. Patrick could tell she was already wondering if the cake was vanilla, her mother's favorite. He couldn't wait to show her that it was. I'll go. Maisie propped herself up on one knee and clutched her t-shirt at the neckline. I wish that you're not alone because it can be scary alone and I don't want you to be scared. That's a beautiful wish. Maisie glowed in his validation.
Now blow out one candle to make that wish come true. Maisie blew gently, skillfully. All three candles flickered, but only one went out. Smoke trailed upward before dissipating in the air, like the wish had transformed into a secret only the three of them knew. Grant? Grant squished his face as he thought, don't make that face. You'll need Botox when you're 9. Grant shook his head. I know, I got one. Let's hear it. I wish I could hear you laugh. Maisie objected. That's a wish for you, not for her. Easy, easy, easy. Patrick scrambled to intervene. How about I wish you much laughter where you are? Grant signaled his approval, very happy with this edit. Patrick shielded the candle closest to himself with his hand and had Grant blow out the other one. Your turn, Gup. A shiver ran through Patrick's body, and his eyes began to sting. This was but an exercise for the children that he was overseeing. Another activity like the letter writing and the videos. How was this so difficult for him? I wish you total freedom from pain, freedom from the body that failed you. I hope that you're full of light, unconstrained, and that you can dance, because I know how you love to dance. He looked at the candle, the last one lit on top of the cake. He struggled to summon a breath, as if the last of the light that was Sarah could be fully extinguished with one forceful expulsion of air. I like that wish, Gup. Maisie rested her hand on Patrick's knee, giving him the permission he needed. Me too. Grant bounced up and down on his knees. Let's blow out the last candle, the three of us, Patrick said, and that wish can be from us all. On the count of three. They agreed. Patrick nodded. Once, twice, and they blew. The room went dark. They sat together quietly, listening for any hint that Sarah had heard them. Can we eat the cake? There was sugar at the end of this endeavor, and Grant didn't want to further delay that reward. Come, Patrick motioned. The kids followed their uncle to the kitchen, where Patrick set the cake on the counter, but instead of pulling out a knife, he produced a box of matches. He pulled a single candle out of the cake, struck a match, and relit the remaining two. Why are we blowing out candles again? Maisie asked. Patrick pointed at the stools and snapped his fingers. They hopped up to the counter like obedient dogs. Marlene, less disciplined, nipped at his heels. I have two more wishes, one for each of you. The kids looked up at him with twisted expressions, confusion mixed with whatever was just shy of delight. Grant, you are my funny boy. My wish for you is that your sense of humor remains intact. Life is not always funny. In fact, it's not always fun. A lot of time it downright sucks. But your humor will guide you, it will protect you, and it will heal you. So laugh hard, laugh loud, and make others do the same. Knock, knock, Grant said, accepting the mantle of this charge. Jesus Christ, not now. Okay. Okay, who? Maisie added with a giggle. Patrick dropped his head to the counter with a thud. Just blow out a candle. Grant leaned in and did just that. Maisie. Patrick stood up straight. There was a red mark on his forehead. You are sensitive and kind and brave, just like your mother. My wish for you is that you carry the best of her inside you and build on that with all the special ingredients that make you distinctly, beautifully you. Maisie swallowed, tasked with this solemn responsibility. Patrick wondered if he should ease her burden, tell her how naturally he thought this would come. Instead, he watched as she leaned forward and gently extinguished her candle, as if with a delicate kiss. Now can we have cake? Grant asked. One more thing. Grant's shoulders drooped. For your mom. Patrick turned on the Bose speakers that sat on the kitchen counter and waited for the Bluetooth to connect with his phone. He opened iTunes and selected a playlist called Dance. She and I would always dance on our birthdays, just go crazy to some really good music and celebration. And I think we should do that for her. Patrick scrolled through the playlist until he found just the song. Ah, here we go. America's third favorite, Wang Chung song, Let's Go. But third favorite. It's actually the best Wang Chung song. People prefer Everybody Have Fun Tonight or Dance Hall Days, but people are generally wrong in this regard. Do you know it? They both shook their heads. It was a cut on their 1986 album, Mosaic, but wasn't released as a single until January 1987. You guys remember the 80s? They shook their heads again, as if it had been a serious inquiry. Jack Hughes sings lead vocals while Nick Feldman sings the bridge. Both sing the chorus. Wang Chung, Jack Hughes, a play on the French Je accuse. No? The kids were growing impatient. This lecture was delaying their cake. It was time to wrap this up. He hit play on the opening synth chords, filled the room in full 80s splendor, played on the play it in the morning, and I defy you not to have at least a decent day. On some days, it's the only thing that makes the day decent. You should know this. More people should know this. Everyone should know this. Uncle rule number 15. Let's go, baby. Let's go, baby. Come on. What? Patrick closed his eyes, letting the music take root inside him. His shoulders were inspired first. They shrugged in tune to the song. His wrists curled in, then up. Then his arms opened wide and his fingers fluttered, ushering the kids off their bar stools. He sang the opening words, "Meet me in a restaurant." He waved again until they joined him. "Dance with me, then we'll stuff our faces with cake." Patrick grasped their hands. They formed a circle and began to sway until the crescendo building to the first chorus. He pulled his hands in close to his body and started jumping excitedly. And then his body exploded as he leapt in perfectly with the refrain, "Let's go, baby, come on." He danced as hard as he'd ever let anyone watch. Grant, inspired, waved his hands over his head and shook them like a muppet. He had surprising rhythm, as if the music was emanating from inside him. Then he swung his hips with an easy, admirable confidence. Maisie moved more timidly, decidedly off the beat, but her smile was all you could really see. "Get your feet in motion." Patrick crunched his abdominals and ran tightly in place. Maisie and Grant imitated their uncle, and they moved in close until their noses touched. Patrick singing the words, the kids doing their best, but not quite nailing it, before they all ran back to their starting places, bursting in joyous motion. For one fleeting moment, this was it. They were the music, and the music was them. Wang Chung itself, for more precisely, Huang Chung, Chinese for yellow bell, and all their sadness rang out of their fingertips in radiant sunshine that warmed the darkening sky. Chapter 25. I don't know this song. Do you know the song? What's it called again? Let's Go. Yeah. Oh, they're a Chinese band. Anyway. Incredibly, Marlene slept through the knock at the door. Patrick wasn't certain if he was relieved or annoyed. She would so easily shirk her responsibilities as guard dog just because she had put in a stint dancing. By the third song on Patrick's playlist, some Ray of Light era Madonna, Marlene was a full participant, jumping on her hind legs like a Pentecostal brimming with the Holy Spirit, about to burst into tongues. Eventually, Patrick and the kids ate cake with their hands. Plates, knives, and forks were instruments of other more solemn people that stood in the way of their joy. They swayed to the music, and Grant let Marlene lick frosting off his fingers. The sugar crash that followed hit hard. Patrick was the last man, child, dog, standing, and even he was splayed out on the couch watching Desert Flippers on HGTV, fighting to keep his eyes open. His first thought was that he might have imagined the knocking, that maybe he had drifted off and was dreaming, or that it was coming from the TV, the host assessing the viability of a rotting home's framework. He sat upright before realizing the knock was real, and when he finally answered the door, he was confronted with a familiar face waiting expectantly on the other side of his peephole. Emery. Patrick opened the door slowly to avoid the squeaking thing it did. So, I was in the neighborhood, Emery flashed his full-tooth smile slash eye-roll combo that looked not unlike the GIF of young Marlon Brando that everyone sends around. When Patrick said nothing in return, he leaned his head in the doorway and pouted with his lower lip. God damn it. No one's ever in this neighborhood, which is precisely why I live here. Patrick leaned on his door, and it swung him flirtatiously closer to his guest. Want to try that again? It's Coachella, Emery offered. The music festival? That's in April. Modernism Week? February, I think. Palm Springs Pride? November. The White Party? I forget what that is, but I'm certain it's not going on now. Dinah Shore? That's for lesbians. I could be a lesbian. His glasses were not unlike Rachel Maddow's. Sure. There was nothing left for Emery to do but come clean. Some friends of mine were renting a house in Palm Desert, so I crashed for a few days. Thought I'd stop by my friend Patrick's and see if he wanted to go for a swim. Patrick considered the situation carefully, weighing the odds of waking anyone against his desire for company, and then stepped out of the way to usher Emery inside. Kids are asleep. They're still here. Patrick made a face, of course, but they had never discussed his custodial arrangement, so Patrick had no reason to hold him at fault. Drink? Sure, I'm not driving. Then how are you getting back to LA? Emery gave it some thought, but not much. I always find a way. It was the thing Patrick missed most about youth, the assumption that everything would just work itself out. That, and his back not hurting. He shook his head as Emery stepped inside and then motioned for Emery to follow him into the kitchen. Whoa, Emery said when he saw that what was left of Sarah's celebration on the counter. You guys murdered that cake. Yeah, we did a number. He put some ice in two glasses. It landed with a nice clink that whet Patrick's thirst. You know Wang Chung, gay Chinese place over on Indian Canyon? Not even close. Then no. Patrick glared at his guest skeptically. When did you graduate high school? Emery attempted a quick calculation in his head. I don't know. I took a test. He scratched his chin. When was Obama president? Oh, God. Patrick muttered while pouring two glasses of vodka. It was worse than he thought. He tipped himself a little extra before handing a glass to Emery. Cheers. They tapped glasses without breaking eye contact, and then Patrick led him back to the living room. Still Christmas, I see. Emery glanced at the artificial tree. Patrick looked up, surprised, startled to see so much pink tinsel. It had sort of faded into the general decor. He hardly noticed it as out of place anymore. The tree had become a strange heart to the home. The white lights nestled deep in its branches, pumping a flattering Pepto-Bismol glow to their evenings. It was a salve when things felt unsettled. It's sort of a tie a yellow ribbon thing. Their dad gets back next week. I told them they could leave it up. Oh, next week. Yellow ribbon, it's pink. Patrick sipped his vodka, letting it warm his throat. Iran hostages, yellow ribbons around old oak trees, Tony Orlando and Dawn. Emery shrugged. Wang Chung is a band, by the way. Are you sure? Because it sounds made up. It was the 80s. Everything sounded made up. Patrick rattled off a list of bands in his head. T-Pow, Kajagoogoo, Bananarama. People did a lot of coke. Emery stared at him blankly. Patrick cleared his throat. Not that I'm old enough to remember. His guest kicked off a pair of tennis shoes so white that Patrick wondered if he didn't clean them with Windex. Emery tucked a bare foot underneath him on the couch, leaning into the corner of the sectional. So, are you like a dad now? It was a loaded question, and Patrick was at a loss for a smart comeback. He allowed himself to get lost in Emery's face. He didn't have the facial architecture that normally set people scrambling. His nose was crooked in that sexy broken way, and his eyes were almost too far apart. It was inviting. It worked on him with an effortless ease, as if he'd practiced for years making his features work in concert, then committing it to memory so he could forget it all and project a certain nonchalance. The way he smiled out of one corner of his mouth was a perfect example. He probably learned all this in an acting class, or worse, a class on auditioning. Is that what he was doing here? Auditioning? No, they have a father, I told you. He's coming home next week. I was talking about your mustache. Patrick felt his cheeks redden. It looks good. I'll bet it tickles. Emery stretched out his leg to give Patrick a gentle kick, then left his foot resting against his skin. He was wearing pants that were part sweat, part yoga, with a drop crotch that hid everything and highlighted nothing, and yet were deeply provocative. Perhaps it was the ease with which they could be removed. Don't you go stir crazy out here? He asked. What do you miss about LA? Nothing. Come on. Patrick searched for an answer that was both benign and honest. Everyone seems genuinely happy here. I'm baseline distrustful of it. So, unease is what you miss. Anxiety, unease. You live in LA long enough, it becomes part of who you are. Emery leaned forward to set his drink on a wooden cutout of Cher's face that people mistook for a coaster. You're a mess. It wasn't even that accusatory, the charge. There was even some tacit acknowledgement in the delivery that everyone was a mess to varying degrees, and that much was hard to argue. But in this moment, Patrick felt more together than he had in a long time, so he was unnerved by Emery's words. Don't worry, Emery said, picking up on the look on Patrick's face. I like a good mess. They can be fun to clean up. Patrick studied the way Emery sat in front of him, face plastered with a goofy smile. It wasn't like the diagnosis came from Clara or someone else whose words could be charged. Still, something about it flustered him. How are things on the Cracker Barrel? Tillamook? Sure. They stared at each other for a long time until Emery looked down to pick something off his shirt. Dumb. They're doing this supernatural storyline, which means it's probably the last season. We start shooting next week. This time next year, I'll be old and washed up, just like you. Patrick narrowed his eyes. You're really good at this. At what? Being a dick, but like in a really attractive way. Does that mean I can stay? He raised his hands like paws to beg. Patrick found it impossible to put his finger on Emery's appeal. He was a chimera constructed of so many gay archetypes twink, jock, otter, nerd, inhabiting none of them with anything resembling exclusivity. He even gave off some faint dad vibes himself in the way that 27-year-olds seem to relish growing a whisper of facial hair and anointing themselves with that crown as if 3 chin hairs transformed them into a Tom of Finland drawing. Emery embraced conformity while eschewing it, all while seemingly floating above it. Patrick didn't know whether to love him, hate him, admire him, embrace him, fuck him, or kick him to the nearest curb. Listen, Patrick began before glancing back over his shoulder to the kids' bedrooms. I would like that, but now's not the right time. You're so sad. Pathetic. No, downcast. It's different, that's all. Patrick was taken aback. What does that mean? I don't know, you tell me. But Emery didn't wait for Patrick to do it. It's just gay people have a sad history, but most of us, we overcome it. We're kicked out of our small town families, then embrace cities and make new families and build brilliant lives. We were beaten, and so we became strong. And now our bodies are envied. A generation wiped out by a virus, but our lives are still a celebration. We made a Frasse we made Frasse a thing, for God's sake. We're discriminated against. We become a political power. That sort of thing. We thrive, all of us. But you have this sadness. I see it. It was a lot for Patrick to absorb. You see it. I see you, Emery said. You're confusing me. Or was it the vodka? He felt warm in the face and dizzy. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. I'm confused. You're not confused. You're lazy. Emery leaned in until his forehead was touching Patrick's, and he rested it there until sweat started to form between them, cementing them together. Patrick grazed Emery's lips with his own, not kissing him quite, but the difference was negligible and would not stand up to scrutiny. Where are you from, Emery? Boise. He could have easily said, drop from the sky. Were you kicked out by your family? Patrick's question was barely a whisper. Once. Emery wove his fingers between Patrick's, but they quickly welcomed me back. They kissed, much like they had the night of the party under the moonlight, when Patrick had pinned him against the stairs of his pool. He reached out and grabbed Emery's face with both hands, eventually, reluctantly pulling them apart. Come on, where's your bedroom? Emery asked. I'll do all the work. You can just lie there. Patrick studied Emery. Do something with me. Emery crunched on an ice cube until it was gone. I'm trying. For Patrick, these were uncharted waters. Did Mary Poppins have a bedroom that we ever saw? Did she ever invite a dirty chimney sweep to spend the night and sweep her chimney clean? What? Maria, the governess, had private quarters. We were allowed to peek inside. It had lousy curtains, and she made them into play clothes. But when she was faced with sexual attraction, she ran as fast as she could back to the Abbey. Mame took a lever and sent her nephew off to boarding school to make room for him. Should he hold out a few more days until he had the house to himself? Did any of this matter? These weren't real people. He was. Okay, come to my bedroom. I need your help with something. I'm not helping you flip your mattress. Not that, although there was a sudden appeal to having someone else around. No, not that. Just come. You'll see. Patrick and Emery lay perfectly still in the bed, feigning sleep but keeping a watchful eye on the bedroom door. Patrick aware the whole time of Emery's warmth and quiet breathing. It was comforting, as if on cue. Just after midnight it opened, slowly at first, just enough to let a small crack of moonlight shine through. His eyes partway shut. Patrick could just make out Maisie poking her head through the open door to see if it was safe, a pillow tucked under one arm. Convinced their uncle was asleep, she motioned for Grant, and they both crept inside, dragging blankets, one of them carefully closing the door behind them. He listened to the rustling of bedding as they settled themselves. Emery reached his arm over Patrick and squeezed his hand tightly under the covers. It was easy to envision Emery stifling history's most irresistible smile. Patrick counted to 10, then reached for his bedside lamp and turned it on with a click. Aha! The kids screamed. Even Marlene barked from her perch at the foot of the bed. Patrick and Emery threw back the covers and sat upright, causing the dovet to slip sideways. Caught you red-handed. What are you doing? Maisie asked, annoyed to be awoken fully, as if Patrick were trespassing in her room and not the other way around. Grant yawned, wiping sleep from his eyes. Is that Emily? Emily? Emery exclaimed. What is he doing here? Grant continued. Maisie looked at the two of them in bed. Is he here every night? She asked, the color draining from her face. It was dawning on her that their nighttime visits might have been more of an interruption than she imagined. We knew he was your boyfriend. Emery, not Emily, and he's not my boyfriend. We've gone over this. I'm not your boyfriend. Emery huffed playfully, delighted in making Patrick squirm. Not now, Patrick said to Emery, who reached for his glasses on the end table. Also, Maisie, every night? Are you kidding me? No, Maisie insisted. Wouldn't you know if he were here? Patrick asked. Maisie scooped her bedding into a little nest around her, too ashamed to admit in front of company that she slept in her uncle's room more nights than not. Patrick focused on his niece until he had her attention. She looked at him sheepishly. Patrick held her gaze until her look grew inquisitive, hoping to get his message across without embarrassing her further. You don't ever have to sneak in here. I'm here for you, always. The silence grew awkward as the message took root. Then Maisie nodded, as if she understood. Grant interrupted the moment. What is he doing here tonight, then? Patrick turned to his nephew. Didn't you get my invitation? No. Grant furrowed his thin, worrisome brow. What invitation? For the slumber party. Emery, did you get your invitation? Patrick turned to Emery, who was more than eager to play along. I did. Mine was embossed, a real work of art. I particularly like the cardstock and the stamp. Emery stuck his tongue out playfully. 10 o'clock, the invitation said. That's right, Patrick agreed. You guys are late. We didn't get our invitations, Maisie protested. Emery got his, Marlene got hers. Patrick threw his arms in the air. Well, I guess we'll have to talk to the mailman. Did you at least bring popcorn? Popcorn for what? For the midnight movie. Oh my god, there's a whole schedule of events. Emery leaned his head on Patrick's shoulders, as if the kids would never get it. Patrick reached over and playfully mused his hair. All summer he thought it would be awkward to show affection with another man in front of Maisie and Grant, but it was surprisingly a non-event. More so, for years he thought it would feel unnatural to himself, and was shocked to learn that was not at all the case either. Emery plumped his pillow and tossed the rest of the twisted dovet to the side. Well, get up here on the bed with your uncle. You want the middle. I'll go make the popcorn. He looked to Patrick for permission. Did he even have popcorn? How far were they taking this ruse? Patrick nodded to Emery, whispering, Thank you. The depths of Patrick's gratitude seemed to catch Emery by surprise. Patrick worried this would send Emery scrambling, or diminish his enthusiasm for the very unconventional date they were on. But Emery did not startle easily, and generally seemed unfazed. Instead, he leapt off the bed with surprising athleticism, landing an impressive dismount that got perfect tens from all three judges. All right. So the next chapter is chapter 26. We'll pick it up there tomorrow. I think we're going to finish tomorrow. I think we could. We're on page 279. What did you think of that? I thought that was very cute. Chimney sweep was, by the way, guys, I got a, remember when I was at the thrift and I got that Princess Leia costume for you guys? While I was there, they also had Mary Poppins. I don't know if it's the whole set. I think it might be. I think it's the one from the chimney sweep thing with the hat. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna figure out a way to make it fun. It's gonna be fun. I don't think it's like a slutty Poppins. You know what I mean? maybe a little shorter skirt, but. Although I did make it a pretty slutty Leia, so what can you do? Carrie and Jerry, how my girls doing? You're not girly men, I'm sorry. You don't have girly names, they have man names. Hard to see from my cried out eyes, but I did try with my makeup, didn't I? Remember when I put this stone here? It just won't come off. When I want to take it off, I can never find my scissors, this stone, but it will come off. I have to cut it because I tied it too tight. Yeah. So I think I might see about watching like a movie or something tonight. But besides that, I mean, I know I want to do my photos maybe tomorrow, but I'm just like, it's like I'm bracing for something really bad. And when things bad happen, I get scared. And it's like, you ever just feel like you just can't handle life, but you have to and it sucks and then things can get worse. Sorry, like fragile feeling. So I don't know how I'm gonna do tomorrow, but I'm gonna try. I try today. So I wanted to order one of those mushroom sandwiches from Jersey. Is it Jersey Mike's, or is it Jimmy John's? I think Jersey Mike's. Anyway, yeah.
The- feel overwhelmed. Yeah, and it's like you have this feeling of impending something scary is gonna jump out, and then I can't seem to get a hold of it. Jersey Mike's, thank you. Um, so it's like calm. I can't seem to reach a calm. So I try to sleep. It's like I wasn't like this for a while. I was doing better, but hopefully it'll go away again at one point. But right now I'm like struggling to put it back down. It's like nothing's gonna go wrong. Anyway, I love you so much. I love hanging out with you and I love reading with you. And I'm so happy that I already have another book lined up ready. And should we do the sequel after this one? I think it's got to be a sequel. I could put it on my list. It's a calming book. It's like the characters. I like to see their story because they seem very like lovable and sweet. All right. You guys get your rest tonight. It's late where you are. Jerry, birthday boy, dance around naked to Wang Chung. Let me see if I can find that song. uh, yeah, it's gonna be a great year. It's gonna be good. I'm gonna make arts. Me, fantastic. You'll try it. Okay.